Welcome to 60 Skills. And today's book review is Yantra Yoga, the Tibetan Yoga of Movement by, and I will mispronounce this, Chogyal Namkhai Norbu. The Tibetan Yoga of Movement, a stainless mirror of jewels, a commentary on Vairocana's The Union of Sun and Moon Yantra. Now, this is a fascinating work in that it is a detailed practice manual for the performance of a movement-based breath retention system of yogic development. Now, the book is very well organized. It has the introductory yantra along with commentary and is broken down into the preliminaries, the physical training, which consists of 5 parts, all of which is very well done. Additionally, you have a chart on page 144 that gives out suggested breath hold times, as well as very applicable in-stage practices where they talk about the signs and results of the quality of practice, which is fantastic, and concluding sections that go over overcoming hindrances, or in other words, problems, final advice, a dedication of merit, and of course, my favorite part, a working index. So let's get started. Again, lovely list of illustrations, all of which are very well done. And here we go. So as you can tell, I've made extensive notes of this. Now, where this is interesting is the only other widely known Tibetan breath retention movement-based practice is trulkhor. And again, while this is widely known, it is very rarely transmitted. So that makes this book's almost complete openness regarding how to go about the practice to be really iconic. So we come in, a brief history of the system and its masters. Then it gives an introduction to the system. Talking about body, speech, and mind, so on and so forth. Okay. And then we begin the Union of the Sun and Moon Yantra by Vairocana. So again, it's got a great translation here. And this, of course, gives way to the commentary, a stainless mirror of jewels. And again, very lovely artwork here. This is a nice thing about Tibetan Buddhism is that they always have commentaries to their core texts. And they are always structured separately or in separate colored ink on the page or what have you, in order to make it easy to determine what the original practice was and what the additions to it were. In this case, they talk about the various seed syllables, the letter E, Vam, so on and so forth. And then they get into the preliminaries. Now, you can tell this is written in a modern age because they tell you what you need to do it, which is really nice. They then go over a bunch of preliminary pranayama techniques, again, delightful, before moving into the actual practice itself. Now, this is the series of breath retentions and, of course, the various postures involved. Now, what's really nice about this is they go out of their way to be explicit about how to do this. This is very uncommon. So we'll take one of their initial postures, the camel, for example. Tells you how to do it. It has really good illustrations, and it gives you the initial various breath holds that are to be utilized. So you go through all of this, which is, again, fantastic and very uncommon. Then you go on to the more advanced postures, which is great. They talk about how they're supposed to work. Now, what's interesting is at this point, they begin to get into the benefits of the actual training. This is very unusual in most of these systems. To be so completely clear about why you're doing something is really quite delightful. So we go on and on and on. Now, one of the nicer things, again, about this system is it also gives you this, which I've never seen anywhere else in an openly published book, a list of suggested breath hold applications, both a closed hold, that is with air in your lungs, and an empty hold, which is with the lungs held empty, and giving you various lengths of time and different parameters by which this should be applied. So at the end of this, you're supposed to be able to do this for upwards of a 16, 64, and 32 count. Pretty incredible that they actually wrote it all down. Now you start to get into the later series, and again, much organized the way the originals are. And then this goes on and on and on. And then finally, you start getting into these further series at the end. Now this is where things get particularly interesting, because all along the way, not only are they telling you how to do these things, they're also telling you why to do these things and what it is exactly they do. Again, I've rarely seen this in many texts that are translated to English. Now, whether this is done simply out of laziness, because translating this kind of thing is rather difficult, or simply because this particular author and practitioner is very well organized, it's hard to say. Now, in general, when it comes to breath retention work or pranayama writ large, I recommend against learning how to do all of this on your own. There's usually subtle details that are important, and there is certainly no difference here. That said, based off the complexity of this system and the fact that it's so amazingly open, I would strongly advise, if you have the means, investigating this on your own. Because this is a very interesting system. Now that said, you have to keep in mind that there are many different Tibetan systems out there. Trulkhor and this system just happen to be two of them. It's one of those things where when you get into the individual practices of some of these groups within the Tibetan religion, there are simply many, many different ways to do this. And again, these are the only two that I am aware of that really spell things out clearly. So I want to get to the end of the book, and this will be a slightly shorter review than is normal, because the book itself is so amazingly clear regarding the different postures, how they're to be held, and most importantly, the benefits to be acquired from doing them. It doesn't really require much elaboration on my part in order for this to be understood. And again, many of you who are familiar with Hindu yogic practice and the various asanas are going to see a lot of similarities here. How much of this is because of the fact that these systems are co-located geographically, or how much of it is because they simply work this way, given what the human body does, is curious and probably something a more advanced practitioner should put some time into researching and figuring out. So we're going on and on and on. Okay, now they get into another very handy thing, where they get into a discussion regarding what the system is supposed to do for you. So here they have the summary of initial and final phases of the yantras of the 5 series, where they describe how to go through the whole thing, really in quite a bit of detail. Now, again, they give different routines that can be performed in here, and all of this is well and good. And again, if you're familiar with the postures or asanas from the Hindu yogic systems, you're not going to see a whole lot of surprises here. And again, the benefits of what it's supposed to do, various times held, so on and so forth. Fantastic stuff, and really, really, really well done. So again, you get into the summary of this different series of the 7 lotus poses. And now this is what I like. The signs and resultant qualities of the practice. See, here it's telling you what the practice is supposed to do for you. And honestly, this is almost always left out in other text. So for example, The resultant qualities of the three secret aspects. As the outer secret sign, the body levitates, pleasure and heat blaze. One obtains the swift gait and has less attachment to food and clothes, and the five elements do not present material hindrances. So it goes on and on and on and tells you all about this. This is amazing. Very few texts go through the effort of telling you what their training is actually going to do for you. So here it talks about the obtainment of the three powers. Thus one obtains the three powers, attaining power over the channels by staring at a person. One is able to frighten or terrorize them, to make them lose their senses or to stun them, to immobilize them or take away their courage. And again, they give you the original language along with the English translation. It is, again, very unusual to have something this well done. Now finally we get into my favorite part, the three concluding sections, part 3, the concluding sections. And in this, they talk about overcoming hindrances. Again, excellent. Hey, you're doing the practice. You're starting to have problems. This is the way you fix it. Again, I would never recommend learning something like this solely from a book, but it shows quite a bit of attention to detail that they would even consider this at all. So, again, the benefits. Again, a clearly written way of doing this. Okay, now final advice. Learn the benefits of yantra through application and understand the rest from the tantras and the upanishads. As the ultimate method of the essence of the magical manifestation, apply the perfected Dzongpa Chunpo. And it goes through all the different benefits of doing this. Finally, there's a dedication of merit. Talks about the author. Now, it talks here about the functions of the 5 pranas. Again, most texts are going to leave things out like this. For someone who's new to the system or isn't fully versed in Tibetan yogic practice, this is really valuable. So it talks about life-sustaining prana, upward moving, pervasive, fire accompanying, and downward moving prana, the different parts of the body they apply to, etc., etc. Another very handy chart showing the relationship between the chakras and the elements. The various applications of the yantras to Buddhist practice. Again, excellent for those who are interested in this kind of thing. I mean, again, just the 5 attachments and their relationship to the locust posture to eliminate obstacles related to the attachment of form. Amazing. Nobody writes this down. Again, a brief summary of the preliminary loosening exercises. And finally, a list of benefits of the yantra by yantra. So, okay, let's say you have epilepsy. They recommend the holding open posture. Great. This makes this very useful. Physical strength, dagger jewel. Okay, pain in the scapula, closing the armpits. Again, wonderful. Finally, there are actual comprehensive notes, which shows just the amount of effort that was put into writing the book, which again is very handy. And they are extensive. There's a couple hundred of these. And finally, my favorite part, an actual working index. So if there's something in particular you want to look up, you know where to find it and you don't have to pull it out of memory. So again, this is a great book. I got mine from Snow Lion out of Boulder, Colorado. But Yantra Yoga, the Tibetan Yoga of Movement by Norbu is the other form of movement-based pranayama that Westerners can read about in the English language. So I highly recommend purchasing and studying this book. That's all I have for today. This is 60 Skills. Be well.